Yeah, so our extreme lockdown really happened in March and April with the rest of the nation. But in Chicago, the lockdown was prolonged. So in places, I believe, like where you live in Atlanta, the lockdown was a bit shorter than what we experienced in Chicago, as well as the state of Illinois. There was definitely a sense of anxiety, not only with myself, but probably with everyone I interacted with. And at that point, we really didn't know how bad things were going to get in Chicago as well as the state of Illinois. You would hear at those times the struggles that New York City was going through, where close to 1,000 people were dying every day. And we didn't know if we were in time for the lockdown to prevent something like that happening in our city. Luckily, we were. But it was a very difficult time. What most people would do is they'd really make a plan. They put on their mask, they get in their car, they go to the store, they get their items, and they'd come right home. And so having that as your only freedom was a struggle. In my role, I am not a clinician. I do not treat patients. I support the technology for the hospital. We all received the order to go home from the hospital back in March. So there were over 4,000 of us that had to go home. So during that time, we had two things going on and a flurry of activities. On the patient and clinician side, we really had to change the way our hospital looked. So we had to convert rooms as COVID rooms that were never COVID rooms before. We had to reverse the flow of air in order to prevent the airborne virus from transmitting from a patient room to the hallways and to other rooms, as well as sending a very large portion of our employee population home to work. And initially we thought it would only be 2 weeks, but it wasn't. It's kind of still going on. So what has changed? So first thing is that most of the non-essential employees that were back home are now back to work on a 50% capacity. Because of COVID, we were able to quickly deploy and increase our telehealth visits. In addition, we've deployed thermal cameras, and what these thermal cameras do is when staff or individuals enter our hospital, it will automatically take their temperature. So all these things have been a direct, I think, positive impact because of what has happened with the pandemic. My favorite activity is probably going out to dinner with my friends, and that is the one thing I miss the most because of COVID. They just put a ban on in-person dining right now. We can only eat outdoors, and so eating outdoors in Chicago in November is not the most ideal and pleasant experience. So I look forward to the days where we can all quickly eat together and it wouldn't be such a hassle. And if you hear that dog in the background, that's one thing I will miss about COVID is hanging out with my dog all day long.